In the last year, we've seen 2 brand new consoles, a third Half-Life game, and a highly anticipated CD Projekt Red title. And I still spent most of that time on a Nintendo DS, a handheld console from 2005. Thanks to my microchips, things are starting to return to normal. But before I become a useful member of society again, I wanted to take a step back and remember the games that got me through a really, really shitty year. There's nothing I can say about Risk of Rain 2 that hasn't already been said, so I won't say anything. Alright, fine. This is easily my favorite roguelike, and it came out the same year as Hades, so that's saying a lot. Risk of Rain 2 is not afraid to let you amass enough power to become God. Equally brilliantly though, it's so masterfully balanced that even when you feel unstoppable, the game is always one step ahead of you. It provides the catharsis of ultimate power, but simultaneously the tension of knowing you're just one small slip-up from complete devastation. More games should have the courage to put faith in the player and release the limits, because the process of empowering yourself in this game is some of the most satisfying build crafting in gaming. My last video covered the launch content for Beyond Light, but even before that, Bungie has slowly managed to restore my faith in their vision as they finally started delivering on many of their promises. In particular, the transition from Season of the Worthy to Season of Our Rivals felt like something truly new. Everything from the live event to the next season being revealed only a short while before it started, to logging in to massive, hulking pyramids on several planets. Most recently, Season of the Chosen has proven to be excellent, containing the most coherent, tightly paced storytelling this franchise has ever seen, more than even Forsaken or Taken King. While Fortnite has been doing this kind of gameplay for longer, Destiny's sci-fi fantasy universe lends itself really well to this sort of evolving world, and Bungie's storytelling during these seasons has made clear that there actually is a benefit to live service games, if only the developers know how to use it. Destiny works much better when it acts like a weekly TV series than a yearly action blockbuster, and I hope for more of this slowly evolving story development throughout the year. Origami King is not as good as Thousand Year Door, but it's not completely soulless like Paper Mario Sticker Star. This game is a deeply flawed experience, but it's undeniably one with a lot of heart. I fell in love with this game's world and characters, and at times even found myself enjoying the battle system. Some of the bosses can be surprisingly tricky. Where Color Splash had solid comedy, Origami King manages to improve the big picture with a much more fascinating plot, cast of characters, and even emotional development. Not to mention, this is easily one of the best looking games on Switch. After beating Xenoblade Chronicles 2, I was looking forward to a version of the original game that featured more than 2 polygons. Monolith Soft over-delivered, serving up a modernized version of a must-play JRPG experience that still holds up in 2020. While oftentimes the world-building feels straight out of a 6-year-old's mind,
long ago, 2 great titans came into existence. The Bionis and the Mechonis.
the story and characters still had me enthralled from start to finish. The strength of this game is in its cast, narrative, and music, which are all great enough that even as someone who doesn't mess much with RPGs, I was able to push through. If you're like me, it's handy to know that you can get through the game just equipping bigger numbers and ignoring a lot of the side systems. The difficulty options are also useful if spending hours in menus reading about buffs and debuffs isn't your thing. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was the last game I played pre-COVID, and I'm glad it's the game that kept me company during that time. Xenoblade 2 was the first JRPG I beat that wasn't Pokemon, and the appeal of the huge world shown off in that 2017 trailer was what got me, like many others, interested. While the sheer JRPG-ness of it was overbearing at first, as I was confronted with endless tutorials and menus, I was pulled along by the great cast of characters and a setting that I found much more fascinating and mature than the first game. By the time the tutorials started to fade away, the story started to pick up, and the world started to open, I had become invested in the combat too, with its unique system of combos and synergies. Ultimately, it's that combat that puts the sequel higher on this list than Xenoblade 1. Pressing a button and immediately seeing an action just has better game feel than selecting attacks from a static menu, even if both games are action-oriented. The RPG systems also just felt more approachable and streamlined for a newcomer to the genre, like me. Everyone has that one franchise they turn to when they're feeling down. Some love the soothing pace of Animal Crossing, others the thrill of overcoming challenge in Dark Souls. For me, that franchise has always been Pokemon. Why? Pokemon is about going on a grand, epic adventure, but one that's still relaxed and fun more than it is tense and dark. As ShayMay said in his brilliant analysis of Omega Ruby,
"The adventure is never too adventurous. The stakes are never too high, and you're never too far from a safe space."
It's still a journey, complete with moments of tension and moments of respite, but because there are never any real consequences to losing, because the world is static and comfortable, and because the primary mechanism for growth is forming bonds, these games manage to offer a play space that is dynamic and intense, but within the context of comfort. What stood out to me about Pokemon Black and White in particular is that more than almost any other game in the franchise, these games felt like they had real heart. Every single one of those huge, visible pixels on the DS screen feels like it has intention behind it. While I don't think these games' story is actually as good as people say, I can't deny that it towers above the rest of the franchise. And where the plot falters, a handful of characters and the amazing music manage to carry you through to the credits. Historically, I haven't been a big RPG fan. In particular, turn-based combat and spending time in menus bugs me. I want to turn on a game and feel immediate action, seeking that catharsis, when the way that your hands move on the controller feels directly tied to a character, until that moment where you stop noticing the controller entirely. That's something that usually only happens when every input corresponds to immediate impact. Like it did for many others, Persona 5 Royal stylishly shattered the RPG barrier for me. The characters, story, and world building are so engaging that I was glued to the screen well before the combat had clicked. Even the amazing narratives of the Xenoblade games were filled with stiff JRPG moments that produce laughs when they intend to produce tears.
I used to believe my father did not love me, until the day he died.
But as has been said before, what really sticks about Persona 5 is its sheer style and flourish. I typically beat RPGs in spite of them being RPGs, because one or two elements shine enough to make me tolerate the rest. Instead, Persona manages to feel so cohesive and impressive to even a newcomer that I fell in love with its combat and systems pretty quickly. It's the first turn-based RPG I've played whose combat I can describe as feeling visceral and immediate. Every single input is followed by such stylistic, exaggerated animation from both the 3D world and the UI that moment-to-moment gameplay in Persona 5 Royal feels more intense than many action games. And of course, there's the music. This might be the single best soundtrack I've ever heard in a game. Every song is amazing. The phase where you rush to a palace's treasure, which is repeated several times, never loses its impact, in large part due to the music and art changing to perfectly match the intensity of the moment. I continue to just be awestruck that a turn-based anime JRPG filled me with such a rush, and I can't wait to see what this franchise has in store next. In a year that felt depressingly static and unchanging, VR provided the novelty I was so desperately seeking, and the catalyst that got me to step out of my Beat Saber comfort zone was Valve's literally once-in-a-decade title, Half-Life Alyx. I've played my fair share of VR games, but almost none have come as close to truly transporting me to another universe. As we once expected of Valve, the music, story, and visual design are all fantastic, but what really shines is Alyx's gameplay and atmosphere, which feels so impactful in VR that this game is truly an unforgettable experience. However, the one moment in VR that had by far the greatest impact on me this year was a mere half-hour demo experience in a game that I've barely touched, the Great Plateau map in VR chat. This is an incredibly impressive recreation, complete with climbing, cutscenes, and shrines. However, the mere ability to witness the scale of Hyrule with my own eyes affected me in a way no game has since... As I stepped out onto the cliff outside the Shrine of Resurrection, I was filled with the same sense of awe I first felt experiencing this masterpiece in 2017. Some VR experiences are really hard to explain until you've tried them. Just believe me when I say it was genuinely moving in a way games rarely are anymore. And I mean awe in the truest sense of the word. More than any other medium, VR approximates the opportunity to feel overwhelmed by mystery and majesty in a way that nothing but nature can truly provide. Breath of the Wild's quiet, melancholic atmosphere, tainted by sadness but filled with small moments of hope, quickly became my favorite quarantine game when I started another playthrough last year. Even without the magic of a first run-through, I was struck by how real a place Hyrule still felt. After playing many open-world games since then, Zelda's supposedly less realistic, more gamey design felt far more immersive than anything the industry has produced since. Even after knowing every inch of the map and almost every secret, even without the mystery of a first playthrough, Breath of the Wild is a triumph, a game with so much heart and soul spread across the very best world design in an open world yet, that even 4 years later, the best of the games inspired by it failed to capture its magic and atmosphere. It stands up among the greatest classics, from Ocarina of Time to Halo, as a true masterpiece and an absolute must-play. So, go play it.